time to talk Survivor. We dropped the 4 and kept the 2. And now you've come to get our take, so this is what we'll do. John will make himself laugh, Andy's talking just won't stop. The backup hosts, they're adequate, but at least this song's a bop. For reasons undetermined, we're still cutting this song short. It's the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am your host, Andy. I'm here this week to talk about the 4th episode of Survivor 42, because I carry this website, much like Jonathan carries the entire Taku tribe.
What is this? What is happening right now?
Hold up, what's going on here?
Are you trying to host the podcast yourself? I know you have done this before. Do you think this is a thing now going forward? You're gonna be soloing this whole thing?
I mean, it was starting to feel that way. I'm gonna be real here. That it's like, I guess I'm the only one invested in this thing.
Oh, wow. No. Okay, fine. We're starting this thing over. Here we go. This is how you do it, okay? Take notes. Get a notepad ready. Here we go. Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast. I am your host, John, and with me this week is Andy. Long time no talk, Andy. Let's talk about Survivor Season 42, Episode 4, just like we should have been doing all along, if I hadn't been across the pond, as they say.
This is the stuff. This is the way it should be.
It is. Doesn't this just feel natural? We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, and I know you've been wanting to hear this, so I thought would be a good time. John?
Yeah.
You're my number 2.
Oh, thank you. That's all I've ever wanted to hear related to Survivor. See, I did not check the comments or anything while I was gone, partly because I hadn't seen the show while I was gone, and just binged it when I got back. But I assumed that everyone in the comments was just constantly wondering where I was, like Poochie. Right? Like, John's not here. Where's John? This is a great dated reference for all the youths that have started listening to our podcast. They're loving this. They're eating this up.
I mean, I'll be honest. There was probably 2 weeks where they didn't quite know it wasn't you. You know, there's like, hey, Andy's talking to a male-sounding voice every once in a while. Must be the usual other guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that I've distinguished myself in some ways, but really, I think it's just, setting you up and knowing when to walk away.
So, yeah, you binged watched 3 episodes in a row. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't in your house. It might not have been like in one sitting or anything, but in a short period of time of the season. So I feel like it gives you a different perspective. My perspective so far has been like, it's been all right. What was it like for you watching, catching up so far?
There's definitely a difference to consuming the show in a binge versus week to week. But I think the bigger difference for me personally was just the lack of live tweeting. It actually made it easier to pay attention to the show. Who knew that Twitter could be a negative in some way?
First time for everything.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I was able to be a little bit more invested. Despite having consumed no preseason stuff, I felt like I got a pretty decent handle on where everyone is, what the tribe dynamics were, and things like that. There were 2 certainly okay episodes, and then one genuinely good pre-merge episode, which is always nice when that happens. It's not a necessity, but it's always nice. So I don't know that, over the course of 3 episodes, the binge thing had a huge impact, but I definitely did enjoy getting to catch up in a hurry.
Yeah, and by and large, I've been fine with this season so far, and like you say, last week was really good. The biggest issue that you haven't had to tackle is that there hasn't been a lot of spicy things to podcast about,
Well, see, that's why I was disappointed that I missed last week, because I would have loved to discuss the negotiation tactics of Daniel and specifically the idea, the one time that you could probably accurately apply game theory to this show. And I did it. I mean, it's not perfectly, but he executed the proper strategy, and I couldn't talk about it. So devastating for someone like me. I have very specific interests, and I missed that one.
Luckily, they do call back to it a bit in this episode. And yeah, Hai basically says what I said last week. Maybe you were saying in your own head last week as well. Neither of us know, because neither of us were listening. basically is that it wasn't that hard a negotiation to win because the person he was facing off with already said that he was going to lose. Like, I will quit no matter what. This is the result I am not going to accept. And I was like, I admitted it himself this week.
It's kind of like if you walked into the car dealer and they were like, listen, whatever price you tell me, that's what we're going to agree to. I'm like, whoa, well, this is amazing. What kind of negotiation did I just walk into?
It sounds like one of your wet dreams.
Anyway, I mean, not to get, too detailed, but sure, that's definitely part of it. So, yeah, it was just fascinating to watch someone who's even more spectacularly bad at negotiation than Angelina. Like, I genuinely enjoyed that. And there was, again, a little bit of blowback from that in this episode and continuation to that story. So I guess we'll get to that a little bit later. But first, and most importantly, the thing that we often lead off with, did you like this episode? We talked about how, we had a generally positive view of the first few. How'd you feel about this one?
It's fine. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong so far. I don't have complaints. In some ways, that does make the podcasting harder. Complaint episodes I can do. Yeah. It was fine. I don't.
Yeah, and not in like a "this is fine" like the meme with the house burning down.
Yeah. No, everything is still going okay.
Yep.
There's some bits I enjoy. We'll get to that, but I'm not super excited yet. But I'm also somebody who is fine for that for that stuff to wait.
Yeah, this was like a league average pre-merge episode. You're just kind of hanging out until something happens later on, which is fine as long as we eventually do get to the fireworks factory. Yet another Simpsons reference. I'm killing it.
They're timeless.
Yeah, the youth are
People
loving
are
this.
sure still watching it on syndication. All right? Wait, is that a thing? Wow, that is older than a Simpsons reference itself.
Yeah, the youth definitely know what syndication is.
Yeah. Sure. This is the thing I've been saying is one issue, like, we've gotten a nice balance in the edit from the various contestants, and
yes.
I think by and large that's probably a positive thing. I think a lot of people like it, although as the weeks go by, there are a few characters that are falling down the rankings. But I think an issue with that balance is every week, I don't really care who goes home. Like, I'm not there isn't any stars yet, right? So it's the same thing this week. It was like, I had my preference and we're going to get into it. But ultimately it's like, okay, well, somebody I surface level knew is gone and somebody I surface level knew is not gone. There isn't that intensity of like, oh my God, I don't want this person to go because the edit is really focused on them because they knew they had to get as much out of them before they left. Or I really want this person gone because, they've been, like a mini villain or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you had a temp at your job and then they left after 3 weeks and then you had to like, oh, how do you feel about me leaving? I mean, it's fine. I at times noticed you were here, so
yeah, you seem cool enough. But there'll be another you later.
Right. I mean, it was always kind of the idea, right? Like you're temporary, so you're leaving now, and that's fine.
That's fine as well. I'm just very fine. Everything's fine.
Everything. Yeah,
because
that's
again,
how I would describe this episode. It was fine.
Really early part of the season, lose people that I'm relatively indifferent to. That's a good pattern. Much better than the opposite, of course.
True.
But there's not as many people at this point yet I would care about. But this episode, let's go to the end because I don't know your takes on these people yet. Was there something you were hoping would happen at Tribal Council?
I mean, one of the few preferences I've developed so far as characters this season was just a general lack of enjoyment of Tori.
Yes.
Not even like villain thing. Like I'm totally fine with someone being a villain as long as they're an entertaining villain. I have not found much in the way of entertainment from Tori.
Yeah, like you're not booing her like a wrestling heel or anything, but at the same time, it's like I just don't like her. Like it's not like, oh, I don't like her, because that would bring heat. That would make me really want her to go. It's just like, yeah, not you. And then you actually don't know this. There's been stuff about like her actual real life stuff that's been out there. It's like, okay, yeah, that confirms that, just kind of that feeling. It's just like I don't.
I mean, what's funny is it kind of, to me, I got a vibe from her and about her where I was just like, this is just not a person that I'm interested in seeing more of, learning more about. Like, I don't want this person on my TV more. It wasn't anything about like gameplay necessarily, because I'm fine with, if she's bringing some heat and gameplay. It was just more like, why are you here?
Yeah, but then the flip side is Swati, who actually seemed kind of like somewhat interesting as a character, but we've both established this. I'm speaking now just for myself, but you might agree. We've established a long-held ambivalence about teenagers on the TV show. It's like I'm not going to mourn too much that the teenager is gone because they're not that interesting. There's a cap. Like if she was interesting now, she would probably be more interesting when she becomes more of a person a few years from now. So it's kind of like I would have preferred Tori, but I don't really care that it wasn't Tori.
Yeah, and I don't even know that it's necessarily an ambivalence for me. Like, it's genuinely that I'm rooting for the teens to go home. This was not a bad outcome for me for that reason. Like, I'm fine with less teenagers on this show. They shouldn't be cast in the first place. JD being the, like, notable exception. Was he 19 or 20? I
believe he was 19, yeah.
All that matters is that he was a gift, and I will gladly welcome him back into my television viewing experience at any time. But basically everyone else that they've cast that's been a teenager, I could absolutely have avoided watching. There has been nothing that I've gained from watching those others.
And then when I found when it gets to Tribal Council, we don't know who it is because I keep forgetting that apparently there's a scene of Tori's in the very beginning of the season that is yet to air. Although, evidence has come out this week that it's not necessarily the huge spoiler everybody says it is. If you go back and look at it, it's actually fairly anodyne and then just kind of clipped together. Despite your non-Twitter following paying attention, you also were completely unaware that this thing happened, right?
Yeah, someone mentioned it, and I was like, what is this? What is happening right now? Yeah. So, yeah, I clearly did not catch that.
Yeah, so I didn't catch it in the first episode when everybody's like, that result was spoiled. It's like, oh yeah, I guess so. All I could say was I guess so because I still had no recollection of that event. But even better because that everybody complained about it that episode, and then 3 weeks later I forgot about it again. I was like, Tori could go home. Like I wasn't sure which ones. It felt like it was Swati, but it could have been the other way. I found going into that I kind of wanted Swati to go. Not because I wanted Tori to stay, but because I wanted Romeo to succeed. Like the hunch that he was playing and the way he was flipping it, I kind of wanted to see that go. But when she plays her shot in the dark, I'm like, hey, if this is the way Tori gets gone, that's pretty cool too. So that kind of like Romeo did engineer the vote that he wanted, but fates intertwined or whatever.
Interesting. So you were hoping for a Romeo mastermind plot here.
Of the options, like, that he sniffed something out felt interesting to me.
Okay.
So I wanted to see that thread through more than just, hey, let's just get rid of Tori because why not, the main reason they were thinking of getting rid of Tori is because she's trying to make this move on Drea. Well, it was Swathi's move. So I like it. There's like storytelling wise, it feels like, complete that it actually ends up falling apart on her. I mean, it also would have felt good that it fell apart on not her, especially because not her is Tori in this instance. Yeah. But just like from a storyline, it's like, that would feel like a good thread that gets closed. Again, like I'm not emotionally invested, but just like from that kind of frame of mind is where I was at.
Okay. So then from your perspective, was Swati the right choice to send home for Romeo and Drea? Let's talk Drea first, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think Drea herself said it. I want them both gone, but I only get to get rid of one of them. Yeah, she nailed it. Either one is acceptable. I do think you can make an argument, which, I get the feeling that Romeo did, that Swathi's brand of deception in this, plot is more dangerous than Tori's because they all have taken Tori's temperature at this point. I think they know the deal. And in fact, I almost wonder if that's what tipped Romeo off more than anything. Like he says, it's like, oh, she was telling me I'm your number one and you, and that led to the delightful editing sequence of all the number one stuff. But like, that's actually fairly anodyne. Like, I feel like that's something everybody says in Survivor.
Sure.
In exit interviews, Swati is saying that like he told me I was his number one. Exit interviews, obviously, grain of salt, but not hard to believe. It's a common thing. I almost wonder if what tipped him off is like, but why is Tori doing this? She should be acting like why is she making any plans at all with Rocksroy, especially? And then maybe that gets the wheels turning. Like, I just don't believe she's capable of such a thing. Oh, maybe Swati is actually the problem. Oh, she has been acting funny. So it's like almost like because they have Tori pegged, that she's less of a threat than Swati. I don't know. What do you think?
And that's exactly where I was going to go. You're right, first of all, that Drea saying that she wants them both gone. Absolutely. I mean, you're only limited by the fact that you can take out one at a time. So, at least in this episode, you can only take out one at a time. But yeah, you need to get rid of the person that presents or the greater risk to your game. So, I think both of them are relatively low risk, but I think in this case, Swati being so young and like emphasizing how everyone is her number one, like, that's honestly a greater risk if there's like a swap or merge, because like you said, Tori is much more transparent and like her floundering and scrambling is much more obvious.
Yeah.
So I think...
I mean, she sucks is the thing. She's not good at this stuff.
Yes, exactly. Like you'd rather keep someone around that is predictably sucky, because then like you're like, oh, okay, well, I know what's going to happen with this person. Like... with Swati, it wasn't entirely clear yet. It's like, I better nip this thing in the bud, and she might have other ideas later. Like Tori seems like she's not going to evolve.
Yeah, she's not fooling anyone. So
Right.
If you're worried about that, I feel like you. Yeah, does it mean that she'll never be able to do anything to you? No, but everybody could be a threat. And the threat that's just like not fooling anyone, I just feel is less threatening. I also wonder if Rocksroy's reaction helped play into it, because he's like, no, it's got to be Tori, and wasn't even entertaining the idea that it could be Swati. Well, then might as well just leave Tori around, because then he'll want to vote on her out next. It might be tougher to convince him to vote out Swati. If it comes down to it next, whereas it probably isn't going to be all that difficult. There's less likely that Tori and Rocksroy are going to team up when you have evidence of what happens when Tori tries to team up with Rocksroy.
And on that same vein, I think that's actually why I like the vote for Romeo as well, because I feel like it's not that it was highly likely in either scenario, but it's way less likely that Drea is going to drop him for Tori than Swati,
Yeah.
So that I liked it from both their perspectives. Good move.
Yeah, and I also like that they didn't bother trying to get Rocksroy in on the vote. It's like, you don't need him. It actually works out. I don't know if this is really the thinking, but had Swati's die came up the right way in a scroll, not in a roll, because that's how dies work. Then you don't even have to go to a revote. I mean, the revote's probably going to be incredibly easy, but anytime you can avoid another type vote, that's a benefit. And yeah, you see at Tribal Council, Romeo asking Drea if she's going to use her extra vote. Like, no, the thing about it is, you actually don't care. You don't need to win this one. You have your preference.
That's right.
But none of the votes are going on anybody you care, which in this now scenario is only Romeo and Drea. So it's like, if this flips and it's Tori, well, hey, who cares, right? So
yeah, as she said, she wants them both gone anyway. Is it mattering that much which goes first? I mean, again, you're barely moving the needle.
Yeah. So I do think in that sense that Swati was the better target. I do have a concern about Tori, and it's not fear or threat level. I just have this vision, and based on, the 2 times that her tribe went to tribal council, that she's going to be that short track speed skater pulling up the rear when there's just a big crash and she just slides on through. I don't think to the victory. She's not going to win. This isn't that kind of game. But just, I could see her outlasting some of these people because she won't seem as dangerous for all the reasons I just suggested that she was less dangerous than Swati. And you can get to a certain point in the game that like her, kind of feeling that she gives people becomes an asset to her continued existence in the game. Again, not in a winning existence.
Right.
So I just have this feel like she's going to like spend a lot of time on the bottom, having no real agency, often being a target, and then just like something else happens. Yeah, Swati gets a little too big for her britches and then gets caught in the lie. Whereas Tori's always caught in the lie, so it's kind of like, this is where I live.
Yeah, I mean, she can skate along as like a bumbling goat for a while, and she's maybe useful to have around as like the second target, Like it's one of those things where because of the shot in the dark, like a Tori might exist for a while because you're fine with Tori going home, but you might have a bigger target that episode. And so Tori's going to be like the split vote candidate probably fairly often before she goes home. That would not surprise me.
Yeah, because like, is it impossible to envision that if Ika goes back to Tribal Council next week, that they just decide to vote out Rocksroy instead of her? Like, I can see that very easily happening.
It's certainly possible. With those Horace Grant goggles, he'll never see it's coming.
I almost would recommend it, Because, like, he's annoying everybody. And now you don't need his vote, because you got 3 between the two of you, and you basically have Tori's vote. Again, he's not going to work with her. I think maybe I would vote out Rocksroy over Tori. Especially because, like, with Rocksroy, this is a thought I've had. Let you weigh on it. Have we ever seen his type escape the pre-merge? The kind of the bossy older guy that nobody likes because of being bossed around. Like, they're usually voted out by now.
See, someone was trying to compare him. I think it was Mike Bloom was trying to compare him to like an Andrew Savage, and I was like, how dare you?
That's just because people don't understand Andrew Savage.
They really don't, and it's so offensive when that happens.
Andrew Savage was beloved by his tribe. I mean, okay, maybe not by Skinny Ryan, and that's what's happening, right? People on the internet see themselves not as the person who would be beloved by Andrew Savage and would beloved him, but they see themselves as Skinny Ryan. Let's be real here.
Whole bunch of Skinny Ryans on Twitter.
No, but like his tribe, they would have, they would have done anything for him. They are all still close to this day.
Yes. And so, like,
nobody beloves Rocksroy. Nobody likes him. The person who liked him the most was Swati.
The only other one that you could maybe compare him to is like a Ken, but like I don't think that's the same archetype.
It's different,
Yeah.
Ken was like shy and awkward, a gorgeous, shy and awkward man.
Yes. Just a chiseled hunk of awkwardness. Trying to think of the guy in Africa who just grated on people, the former military guy. Like,
oh, yeah, Frank.
There you go, Frank. Like, Frank lasted a while.
Hopefully a less... he did actually went down to, like, the final 6 or so.
But also,
that
that was 40 seasons ago. So, maybe not the most apt comparison.
And he would have gone home without a swap, so... Yeah, no, it's just like his archetype is usually gone by now for all the reasons why people keep talking about wanting to get rid of him. The other great scene we have with Romeo this week was when he called up his own montage of Rocksroy bossing him around, which was fantastic. Like, that's kind of like, we're getting good stuff. Like, again, no complaints. It's just, I'm not as excited. So yeah, it's like I can easily see Tori surviving another vote should Ika go to Tribal Council and stick around. And it's like, it could just be that path for her. Everybody's like, they begin every episode convinced that now's the time to get rid of Tori because nobody likes her. And, I don't know if she can be as goaty as you'd like, because I think she, in her mind, thinks that she's a player. And that, she's, I think she, pushes off and brushes back against the idea of being told what to do. But then eventually will default to it once she's, in trouble all the time. And as Rick Devins pointed out on Twitter, she's a therapist who hates narcissists, which I feel like is going to make your profession a little harder.
Also, if you hate narcissists, Survivor maybe not, actually, reality TV in general, maybe not the place for you to go, Also, I feel like there's a bit of job inflation going on here, which Survivor does all the time, not just for Tori, but calling her a therapist. Not that you cannot be a therapist at 24 in the U.S., but it's a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, Emma and I talked about this when you're gone. Could you imagine seeing a 24-year-old therapist?
No, I could not.
And like, again, like, at some point, a therapist at the beginning of their career is, frequently going to be younger. Like, I can understand that.
Yep.
But I also just couldn't understand talking to somebody that young about my problems. And a theory I've had is, like, maybe you work with young people, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, young people have mental health issues
now,
too. So
tougher is, can you imagine having Tori as your therapist? Right now, that's tough. It's tough.
Yeah, exactly. As I said, I just had a vibe right away where I was like, not her though.
Yeah, and like, again, she's not hated or anything. Like,
no.
She's not that big of a presence yet to draw that. It's just like it's just a vibe, How about on the tribe there? Actually, I'll just want to say this is I've already kind of touched on it. I've found coming off of this episode especially, and it's kind of been there throughout the season, but there hasn't been much play. I was kind of liking Romeo. Like, I don't, again, not as a standout character. Like, for instance, like for brainy guy on the tribe, like Hai is far more interesting.
Yes.
Over in Vati, but he just kind of seemed like a chill dude. I think what I really liked about him is when he was going through both the complaining to us about Rocksroy, but also seeing him in the moment, like quietly suffering Rocksroy, and like. Yeah, I was like, I felt that. I felt that a lot. So I like Romeo. What about you?
I'm not as high on him as you are, but I actually did note the exact same thing that you did, that he was talking about how he feels in those moments, and you could read it on his face because the camera was actually catching angles where you could see his face and him just being like, oh God, I am suffering this fool. And it was great. It was, I love when the editors indulge the players in their insanity. So the Rocksroy montage was pretty great.
And I did like how he's like, I'll take it to, keep playing this game. Like, that's what this is. So it's like, good sense. Like, I don't know I don't know if there is 5 characters this season. But like, I think I'm digging him the most on that tribe. How about you? I have guesses.
Probably fair, only because... Drea.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a high bar to be clearing.
Yeah,
sure.
And Drea might be a more interesting player, but man, she's pretty monotone when she's talking. Yeah. Not the most charismatic.
Yeah, I think she's more dynamic. But I've had complaints about the gameplay thus far.
Yeah,
perhaps a little too aggressive, needlessly in some areas. Frankly, telling people that I have this vote advantage. You don't need to do that. Not when you already have a voting advantage among women versus men in the first place.
Yep.
But she was able to sniff it out, or as presented, Romeo was able to sniff it out, and she believed him. So, yeah, no, I haven't spent a lot of time talking about him because, again, like, he's not as interesting as Hai or Drea, even definitely not Marianne, that sort of thing. But this episode, I thought he did it well.
Well, speaking of the more interesting characters, let's switch tribes here and talk about the fallout from last week, because we started off the episode with Daniel coming back to camp, and I love me some Daniel floundering.
Yes,
enjoy that. Yes,
very much so.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I laughed and maybe clapped because it was just a parallel, right? Like, so last week he's like, before we begin, I just want to make it clear that I am going to fold. Before you deal, we get into this final round of betting. If you push me all in, I'm going to fold. That's how we started Tribal Council. And then he gets back and then it's like, before we begin, I just want to let everybody know that I don't want to talk. I'm just too tired. I can't even emotionally deal with this. And it's like, so, like, in the real world, you can understand that. I need my space. But you're playing a game. And what you're saying to the other game players is, they can just hammer you now, and you are in no position to defend yourself. This is what this is now. You should have gotten your nap on the way back to camp, buddy, because the game on, and you have a lot of explaining to do and a lot of pieces to pick up, and right away, he rolls over and shows that nice belly.
It is a very bold strategy to begin every contest by conceding, but I'm here to watch it. Like, I
how it goes, Cotton.
It was, and also there was the added element of obliviousness, right? Because like he couldn't imagine why Chantel didn't have his back when his very first move, when he gets the slightest pushback at Tribal Council, was to fold immediately and point the finger at Chantel, like,
it was her, Chanel. But yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. But again, so he immediately just gives up and is like, oh, it was her. Now he's wondering why she's not getting blowback and he is. Like, how are you this oblivious?
Well, again, that's it. He's oblivious. He is unaware of how poorly he does this.
It's great.
And I'm sure, that's not fair to say. I am, of course, not sure. I would not be surprised to hear that this is not, new behavior for him. Obviously extremes. Hopefully he's not, engaging in these levels of, deception or failed deception. But, he probably is, completely oblivious to, what he's doing. He's oblivious that he was, throwing her under the bus. And, I said a bit of this last week, not very well. It's like, I can understand it a bit because it's really nice for Chanel to be all like, what? I didn't do anything because you gave up your vote, dummy. You made the worst move last week. And now you get to sit here trying to be blameless. It's like, okay. We get it. You didn't vote, but what would you have done if you had voted?
You said she made the worst move last week, but unfortunately you forgot that's a high bar.
I still mean it. Everything spun off of that. And, Daniels is in a weird position where it's a one-on-one vote because his idiot tribe-mate alliance partner gave up her vote. Even though minutes before that, she's like, the one thing I know is I can't afford to risk my vote.
It was so good. And not only that, but essentially has a conversation with the other player and is like,
and says it.
I gotta play it safe here. When then you get to it, you read what you have to do, and surely it goes through your mind. I just told this man I have to play it safe. That makes him more likely to take the risk. Therefore, I'll take the risk as well, and then we're both screwed. What was the logic there?
I'd almost respect that logic more than, you know what? I'm sure he's going to take care of me here, so I better do it.
Wild.
To continue my poker analogy. So if Daniel's the player who, after all the cards are dealt, and it's just one more round of betting saying, no matter what I do, if you push me more money, I will fold. She's the player who says, man, my cards are really terrible, when they actually are. So somebody actually bets everything because you told them that there's no risk involved here. And then she's like, oh, well, I better call. It's like, no, you've just explained your hand, which is that I will not be doing this. I cannot risk my vote. Now you know what happens, what the game is, because I love the delightful optimism of, well, if we both have a chance to get something, let's do it. You know now. There's no chance of both of you.
Nope.
It is one of you, Omer, or none of you. And she's like, oh, but it could be me. So no, I am confident in that she made the worst decision. She made the worst move. Lots of competition. Fair. And because of that, she thinks that she gets to sit here and just be like, what? I didn't do anything. And she does get to do that only because Daniel is so bad at this.
Well, and then, so there's the additional element of Mike's conversation with Daniel, where Mike's like, you played me. And Daniel's like, no. Well, now that you presented me all the evidence that you remembered from a few hours ago, yes, I guess I did, now that I have that laid out in front of me again. What did he expect, that it would be forgotten after 2 hours?
We're still on this? That's old stuff. Why we gotta talk about old stuff?
Come on, we can't be
I just want to go to bed, man. And again, he probably really does.
Oh, sure. I bet he's exhausted. But just the again, it just reminded me of the tribal council, where the slightest push, just he crumpled. It was like Mike saying, you played me. No. And then Mike's like, well, yeah, but there's one thing. Oh, okay, yeah, you got me. Oh, shit. Okay, well, I guess you aren't the most strong-willed adversary here. So,
I mean, Jeff is just asking him how it's going. And it's like, I want to make one thing clear, Jeff. I am not going to win this game. God bless this guy. I hope he sticks around.
It's great. I mean, I love someone who's just comically bad at Survivor, and that is absolutely Daniel. It is great to watch.
It's beautiful stuff. So,
the one thing I did enjoy, though, about Daniel's game last week, which I was also disappointed that I didn't get to comment on, is that Daniel talks to Mike and convinces him not to say the phrase, which, by the way, I'm sure it didn't take a lot of convincing because Mike was probably like, I'm not saying that shit. That's embarrassing. So like,
I can't say that about soccer. Yeah, I have that theory.
Right.
Is like, even if like Ika finds it, maybe Mike is just like, no. Not having a vote, not having immunity is more important than saying positive things about soccer on television.
And I also enjoyed that, like, Mike never considered that, or Daniel Daniel might have actually, but never considers that people in other tribes might be doing the same thing,
the
like
same
waiting
thing.
them out. Like, this is not a scenario that even crosses his mind. So.
No, I mean, look, man, if Daniel thought of it, all the loopholes and all that had to be figured out. I can understand why Mike would still be sticking to this plan.
Yep.
The one thing we know about Daniel is lots of foresight. Yeah, I know, like, the general thought, which I share, is that this is the last time they could do this sort of thing. It doesn't work once an audience and thus the game players are ready for the phrases and all that. But I almost do want to see it so that multiple people who try to, I don't want to be the first person to say it. I don't want to be stuck here like Marianne for multiple episodes. Xander saying this for nothing. I'll just wait. And yeah, that apply to multiple, maybe even 3 people. That I want to see.
See, I think in future seasons, people should just start saying random wild shit at the immunity challenges just to throw the game off. Like, oh, wait, does that person have an advantage? What's happening right now?
Yeah, what's tough about that, though, is what does that get you? Like, I want to see it, too.
You might draw a target.
Yeah, it announces to people, that guy might have an idol. We should vote them out before they do, because I only heard one phrase,
Yeah.
But I'd also like to see it, it's true. Yeah, no, Daniel has been amazingly bad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't find him at all interesting in, like, confessionals, but I do like watching him just flounder trying to play the game. Like, it's sometimes it's fun to watch people be bad at stuff, and Daniel is bad at a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, even there, like, he does try to, like, this is going to be my fun soundbite or whatever. It's like, yeah, I can turn on a dime, and I need that dime to turn. It's like, that's not actually what that's about. It's not about a rotating dime. It's about you turning so sharply that even the circumference of a dime. But, I mean, maybe on Survivor, they'd actually have a competition that would be about turning dimes.
Exactly, yes.
It certainly wouldn't be about spending them or flipping
It would go right with those 6-sided immunity slips of paper that you're putting in.
Well, how about this? So you have been around to talk about it. There was I addressed this, as you could expect, way back in episode 1. Drea, Lindsay, and Hai get the amulet advantage, and it is like a key.
Yes.
Do you think that key is going to open anything?
I gave it zero thought. It would be very funny, though, if they did something completely unrelated with the key. Like something...
There's no fucking way that key is going to open anything.
It would be...
That's not how things work on Survivor.
It would be great if they were like, okay, you've got the key. Now, as you do with keys, you're going to sit it on top of this box, and out of the bottom of the box will come a piece of paper. What the fuck?
Like at least put the keys in a bowl. Like, that's something that happens.
Oh, we're going to have a Survivor key party?
That's right.
Yeah. Another dated reference for the kids. We were really...
Look, man, we're old. We hate teenagers on this show. Let's lean into it.
Yeah. So let's switch up to some of the counterbalance to Daniel's just floundering. Let's talk about Jonathan, because Jonathan just keeps killing it.
He's amazing. I'm not usually into challenges except when it is this impressive. The one note I'll have is that it would be nice to see him just like crushing people that had just somewhat of a chance to at least seem competitive against him. I have no doubt in believing that what he is doing would be impressive no matter who he was competing against. I just wonder if the vast difference between what his tribe, because of him, is able to do versus the others, is it more because of him or more due to the haplessness of the rest of this cast?
¿Por qué no los dos?
Yeah, but man, like as soon as the immunity challenge starts, because lot of sour grapes when Taku just destroyed them in the reward challenge. And I gotta say, I don't think Jonathan actually had a big part of that. In fact, you could argue that his size would have been a disadvantage. It's just that they didn't allow it to, getting up and around that pole frequently.
Yep.
But in the immunity challenge, like, it feels like Jeff just says go. The next cut we have is the wide, and his fucking boat is already almost at the second obstacle. It's like, Secretariat and, at the Belmont, and I just couldn't stop laughing. It was amazing.
So good. So good. It really was. It's like Michael Phelps jumped into the pool at the local Y. It's like, boom, he's
just tearing through that shit. It doesn't even feel like, it's like, when Ozzy swims, it's graceful. It's like he's a dolphin-made man. Jonathan is just tearing through this fucking water like it owes him money, exactly. And it is amazing. Then we get, then they jump for the keys and all of that, and then the second row. Like, Marianne is just the literal anchor to that boat. She is not even in front of the boat because he's just pulling all of it. She should have at least been able to grab the side of the boat.
Right. It just at least hang on to the boat. Like, he will pull you. It's fine. That challenge last week was legitimately great. And I know, obviously it continued this week, but there was someone I saw said something about that's not fair. The waves started getting more intense. So of course the other tribes were like, that's not a criticism because he managed to get them to the spot before the waves got intense. Like, that's because he's good. Like, and I enjoy watching him in the challenges partly because he is that challenge beast, but he's not like an intense asshole about it, which can often happen with guys like that. Mm-hmm. It's just he's genuinely supportive of his teammates, and we saw him like standing there, they're doing the puzzle, and he's like, "You got this, guys. You're doing great." Just like rah, which was an interesting contrast, I thought, with like Rocksroy, who's, being the dad and like, you gotta grab this. And no.
That's not the piece.
Yeah. Jonathan's just back there like, go team, man. You guys are doing great. You're killing it out here. I got faith in you. And, they just like walk off home run. Just easy. Not even a close contest in the challenges.
Yeah, no, I love it. I hope he sticks around long enough to like do some more superhuman stuff. He's not going to win. He won't be long for the game once they hit the individual portion. But obviously, he can keep himself around by winning challenges. Ultimately, due to the mix of challenges and Survivor, there's going to be something that gets him. Puzzles.
See, I think ultimately when you get to the like individual challenges, he won't. I mean, this is all guessing, who knows? I mean, he might have skills that we haven't quite seen yet, but like his strength and his tearing through the water have been a huge asset in these. But the team challenges tend to be more like that, where you have more physical elements and things like that. And is that going to equate to him standing on a platform and holding a tray of balls? Probably not. I mean, maybe. Yeah. Who knows? As I said, he might be as graceful as a ballerina. But
yeah, and he is like a surfer guy as well, so balance might be okay. But there's going to be something like just like his size and bulk could work against him, right? If they put all these guys up on a beam and they have to hold it, as Yul has explained, that does not favor the bigger people. We don't know if he has any puzzle acuity at all. So yeah, probably will not win. But I just want to see him beasted a few more times. It's like, even if an episode is otherwise not that interesting, that 5 minutes is giving me a lot. Like, it's just impressive shit, man. I like to see it. I just wish it didn't come with a tragic backstory.
Yeah. What the hell? I mean, you and I are both parents, and I bristled immediately when he was like, oh, I was 3 and my dad would wake me up to do pull-ups, which I'm sure is an exaggeration because 3-year-olds are not known for pull-ups. But at the same time, like, what parent is waking up their child to do pull-ups? That is not okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the one caution I have before, we start trying to hunt down his dad or something is like, it could be exaggerated talk. Like, that my dad was a stern taskmaster trying to make us, be more physical, maybe,
Sure.
That's possible that it wasn't exactly that way, because that is fucked in a way that I don't think he understood, which is fine. He seems like a good dude. Hopefully he's not carrying too many scarring, although, Yeah, if we were to extrapolate from this, if this was a story as opposed to real life, it's like, is that why he seemed so down when they called him Goliath? That awful Tory, awful blonde-headed one.
The blonde.
Yeah, no, don't wake up your kids. For one, in the general, it's not a good job to wake up your kids in the middle of the night anyway. Their developing minds and bodies require sleep. But yeah, maybe not with the. Although I will admit that I often early in the morning will wake up my kids so they can work on their takes, because it's important to the family name that they're just getting the takes off. Interrupting people, yelling for no real apparent reason, but then getting too quiet for the people balancing, like that sort of thing. I have been training them
and just
for.
Occasionally kicking a table in there with the microphone
That's
on
right.
it. Yeah, while you're
They're going to
talking.
be pros. Yeah.
So that the editor has to just take out huge chunks of what you just said.
Well, luckily, you just say enough, loud enough, that there should be enough time that nobody will really notice. It's like, well, he's still going.
These are the type of life skills you're imparting to your children. If you throw enough words at it, they can cut words out, and you're still fine.
That's right. I mean, it's proven very profitable for their dad, so, one day, they'll be in the Guinness Book of World Records, too.
You and I both know, because we've both had 3-year-olds at various points, they're not doing pull-ups. But at the same time, there's some element of truth to that story where it's like you were having your children exercise for you, which, good.
Exercise is good. Yeah.
Kids exercise. Just the waking them up in the middle of the night thing, which I hope is an exaggeration. Because again, that's not the time. They have all day to exercise.
What did you think of him saying at the in response to Probst the reward challenge that we have a real tight 4, and they're like red flag, red flag, red flag? What was your response to that?
Unless there's an immediate swap, it's going to be fine. We generally overrate how important these little moments are. We I think discussed this last season too. By the time a merge or a swap or something comes around, there's usually just a whole host of different priorities that have nothing to do with that. So yeah, in theory, it could bite him. It probably won't.
The one thing about it is they showed it, right? Saying it in general, but it's is this a narrative that they're going to craft, and this is a piece of the thread. I mean, ultimately, how much damage it does. It's kind of worrying about Probst calling him out last week of that being one of the most impressive performances ever, which is accurate.
Yep. It usually isn't when Probst does that, but in this case it was. Yeah.
Adam B in comments is Andrew Savage was better, and I'm like, Andrew Savage is competitive. I don't know if I'm willing to say that was better, in Pearl Islands when he shouldered all that weight, but that is a good comp. Where I was getting at is I don't think the rest of the contestants will need Probst calling that out. We'll need Jonathan saying they're tight 4 to view Jonathan as a threat. They have eyes. They are seeing. There's no hiding this, It is just obvious.
The fact that he got called both Goliath and Thor in this episode seems to suggest that, people have maybe registered that he is a physical specimen.
Yeah. So, I guess where it could be is it could pose more of a threat to the other 3 Takus. I think Jonathan's going to be a threat no matter what. And it's nice that he's that I'm the biggest shield, but it's nobody... I feel for somebody like Jonathan to serve as a shield, there has to be somebody else who would then be the next target in a physical thing. And there's nobody, man. There's not a second... the closest would be Drea, who also is an athlete. But, people aren't talking oh, no, I'm worried about Drea and winning challenges. There's one person this season that they are worried about in challenges.
Yeah, that's the thing.
There's no second place.
Is for those shield arguments, you really need... someone that you need to hold off by keeping the shield around, right? But in this case, who are you worried about? As you said, there is really, it's once you lose Jonathan, the playing field is much more even, right? So I don't think anybody's all that concerned about needing Jonathan around to win immunity so they can get so-and-so out.
That's why it's also really important that he makes the merge, because I don't want to see these hapless fucks have to do team challenges without him. They didn't need to do this, man. There had to have been at least another like two athletic people, and split them up from last season or something. Again, maybe nobody is going to look like they're competitive with Jonathan, but none of these people even strike me as competitive with, like, I don't know, the top physical competitor of last season, who I'm just assuming
was an NFL player, so
Yeah. Well, so there you go.
Yeah.
There, those two, man. Like, that I bet that Danny can hang, right? Maybe even top him in some areas. Although the thing is not just that Jonathan is this
phrasing, by the way.
Sure,
top him in some areas.
I mean, you know what? I'm not necessarily saying that that Danny could. I don't know. I don't imply the relationship there. It's all preferences.
There's no judgment here.
It's not just that Jonathan is this, like, mountain-made man. He's also, like, a fantastic swimmer and stuff too. Like, he's just so tailor-made to this.
But that's the thing, though, is you're right. It's not that even he's a fantastic swimmer. He is, like, again, it's not the most graceful of swims, but he has so much power that it overcomes it. It's sort of like, I'm a terrible swimmer and I flail and use way too much energy, but I don't have Jonathan's strength, and thus I do not move at the speeds that he does.
So this is the 4th week in a row now that I've been speaking to somebody new about this season, and everybody I feel has and must offer their Marianne take.
Oh.
What's your take on Marianne so far this whole season?
Oh, Marianne is a lot.
There you go.
Wow. I mean, from the first episode, I think the first time she's introduced and she starts talking, my wife and I pause the show, and my wife's like, "Wow, that was a lot." And I was like, "Yeah, she's a whole lot to take in, and I cannot imagine being around her 24 hours a day for the next 26 days." I did very much enjoy the thirsting over Zach that she had seen. It was very much like a Billy seeing Candace thing, where she's like, I found true love out here. Like, what the fuck? What just happened? What? And also him. But I enjoyed that. I mean, I enjoyed her imitation of her mom. It was great. But there's also an intensity to Marianne where I'm like, I cannot take large doses of this. I really need it to be spaced out.
Yeah, I mean, my basic take right off episode 1 is, like, she seems, like, so dynamic, like, pops off the screen, like, right when she first, she can't contain her excitement when talking to Probst. And she seems really nice, but, yeah, it's a lot. And the first episode, there was some pushback. Most people were like, how dare you? She's a delight. I love her so much. And then there was other people like, oh, thank God someone said it. I think now... we've settled right into everybody, and it helps that the cast members are saying it themselves. Like, yeah, she's really nice, but now I think it's led to some good TV. Like, I think she was obvious casting, and they made the right move because she's going to be something that you're going to all have to bounce around and bounce off. Like, I like how she's pissed off that nobody else seems to have the idols. It's a good reaction.
It is.
And I don't have to live with her 24/7.
Exactly.
So that works for me.
I mean, honestly, that is what a lot of my favorite Survivor players, I think that I could not tolerate, being around them. But on my TV and in small doses, great. I love me some Tyson or some Tony. Just small bits.
All right, so who else has been standing out for you? It doesn't have to be restricted to this episode, but from the 4, where are you at on this?
I mean, it's probably Jonathan. High, as you mentioned, got a good vibe from him. How
about High with the blood? All right, that's the reaction we needed.
My kids were watching that. Or actually, guys, they were both watching it with me, and so I said, they're going to think he got attacked by a shark. What is he doing? What was his mindset?
I love it so much. It's what led to this beautiful, go to the mat relationship he has with Lydia. She's like, oh my God, dude, are you okay? That's how you form a ride or die, go to rocks, is cover yourself with fake blood and see who cares.
I mean, the thing is, sure, you might have gotten cut doing whatever it is that you're doing where they couldn't see you. You would not be covered in blood. I mean, if you were, medical probably got called in for something. Like, you gotta...
There should be some physical evidence.
Right. There should...
From where the fluid that is contained in your body has escaped from your body. There's usually some kind of penetration.
It would have been very funny if he was like, I had a nosebleed. Because it was a flood. And again, there's no visible scratches for it to be coming from. Theoretically, the nose just like a fountain down onto his chest. Yeah, maybe that works. Anyway, I am enjoying High. He did do the right thing last week. It took him a second to get there. But, starving guy on an island and a little confused after the fact that there was 2 votes out of 6 people. Like, I can get it, that maybe throws you off your game a bit. So you're not right out of the gate with the best strategy. But he got there. And then as far as another one, I mean... like a distant third would probably be like the Drea Romeo combo. Like, there's maybe something there.
Yeah, I really dig the Jonathan Omer combo, like them together as the kind of odd pairing. Like, Omer himself seems cool, but I like him with Jonathan.
Yes, exactly. It's one of those things where they're complementary pieces. Like, Omar on his own is not as entertaining. It's really just the way they bounce off each other.
All right. We have anything else to talk about this episode?
I think I made it through this episode without any COVID coughs, so props to me for that. I still had a few lingering COVID coughs today, thanks to meeting up with a listener of this podcast. So highly encouraged.
It's a mistake. Never meet your fans.
Exactly. Highly encourage the rest of our hosts to go out there and meet our friends and fans.
You know that's never going to happen with me. I'm strictly against meeting anyone.
I do understand that, yes.
I do love the deep, fantastical irony that you had to leave the state of Florida in order to catch COVID.
It was like, odds makers would not have let you. They wouldn't put money on that. They'd say, no, come on. That is a fantastical scenario. That's never... We can't even give you odds for such a thing. And yet... Here we go. So... Thank you to jolly old England and my dear friend Kemper Boyd for infecting me after 2+ years of avoiding it or whatever it had been. But still, I can breathe and talk again, and I'm back. I've caught up with Survivor. We're back, baby. The band is back together. We're doing this thing.
That's right. And if you would like to meet people with whom you could visit and then give, respiratory illness to, you can do that on our website at purplerockpodcast.com. Where else can they interact with us?
You can find me on Twitter if you want to just tweet at purplerockjohn and say, like, I am also anxious to give you communicable disease. That'd be great. And you can, of course, tweet at the show, which is at Purple Rock Pod. I finally did some live tweeting this week, which really helped me ignore significant parts of the episode. And of course, you can find Andy on Twitter at Purple Rock Andy.
Like and subscribe and all that places. Apparently, we're on Amazon Music. We got an email about that. That was the first I knew about it. I was probably the person who filled out a submit form for that. I don't know. Maybe we've been there for years. Did you know Amazon Music was a thing? I didn't.
I did not know that. I also would not have suspected that podcasts would have been a thing on there. But who knows? The podcasting game is so huge. Everyone wants a piece of this Purple Rock action.
So if that's your podcatcher of choice... interesting choice.
What is wrong with you?
All right. I'm going to hit some theme music.